Macedon, 336 before Christ. A king is dead on the floor, and his 20-year-old son is sitting on the throne. How does a boy hold an empire together when every rival in the ancient world is already sharpening a knife? What did Philip II actually build that made this possible? And what did Alexander do in his very first weeks of power that told everyone exactly who he was? Macedon, roughly 340 before Christ. Philip II is watching a cavalry formation wheel across a dusty plain, and riding at the front of it, not beside him, not behind him, is his teenage son. This is not a ceremonial role. Philip has placed Alexander in command of a real unit in a real engagement, and he is watching to see what the boy does under pressure. That image tells you almost everything about Philip's strategy, because Philip's greatest military project was never the conquest of Greece. It was the construction of a son who could hold everything he built. So what exactly did he build? The answer comes in 3 layers, and each one matters. Start with the army. Before Philip, Macedonian forces were respectable but unremarkable, a collection of regional levies that fought roughly the way everyone else in the Greek world fought. Philip changed the fundamental physics of warfare. He developed the sarissa, a spear nearly twice the length of anything a standard Greek hoplite carried. Arrange enough men carrying sarissas in a tight formation, and you create a wall of iron points that an enemy simply cannot get through from the front. But the phalanx alone was not the revolution. The revolution was pairing it with the companion cavalry, the heavy horseman Philip, recruited from the Macedonian nobility and trained to strike at exactly the moment the phalanx had locked an enemy in place. That combination was something the Greek world had never seen systematized before, and here is the detail that mattered most for what came next. This army was loyal to the Macedonian throne, not to any individual general. The second layer is political. Philip spent 2 decades methodically neutralizing rival Greek city-states, through diplomacy when possible, through force when necessary. It culminated at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 before Christ, where the combined armies of Athens and Thebes met the Macedonian force and lost decisively. The 18-year-old Alexander commanded the decisive assault on the left flank that shattered the Theban sacred band. Ancient sources present this as evidence of natural genius. Complicate that reading for a moment. Philip chose to place Alexander in command of the decisive wing at one of the most consequential battles in Greek history. The third layer is legitimacy. After Chaeronea, Philip convened the League of Corinth, a pan-Hellenic alliance that positioned Macedon not as a conqueror of Greece, but as its leader, its protector, the guarantor of Greek order against the Persian threat to the east. Philip even hired Aristotle, the most respected philosophical mind of the age, to educate Alexander for 3 years at Mysa. Ancient writers tend to portray this as proof that Alexander was a natural prodigy who absorbed wisdom effortlessly. The reality is more interesting. Philip engineered every major intellectual and military experience his son had. Here is the plain verdict, stepping outside the story for a moment. Philip did not just conquer territory. He built a succession plan disguised as an empire, an army, a political architecture, a pan-Hellenic mandate, and a son trained to operate all of it. Most rulers accumulate power. Philip packaged it for transfer. But inheriting a machine and knowing how to drive it are 2 entirely different things. And the moment Philip's body hit the ground in 336 before Christ, every rival in the ancient world made the same calculation that a 14-year-old on a throne was an opportunity, not a threat. Within weeks, the messengers are already riding to Thrace, to Illyria, to the city-states of Greece, carrying the same news and the same unspoken question. Is this the moment? The answer came faster than anyone expected. Rebellions erupted across the northern frontier almost immediately, and the Greek cities that had bent the knee to Philip began testing the edges of their submission. Athens debated. Thebes moved. The calculation was straightforward. A 14-year-old inheriting the most powerful military machine in the Greek world was still, at the end of the day, a 14-year-old. Alexander did not hold court and send diplomats. He marched north. What followed was not a heroic legend. It was a logistics exercise executed at terrifying speed. Alexander drove the Macedonian army through Thrace and Illyria in a campaign designed to do one thing: demonstrate that the machine Philip had built did not require Philip to operate it. The phalanx locked. The cavalry broke. The revolts collapsed. He was back in Greece before most of his enemies had finished deciding whether to commit. Then came Thebes. In 335 before Christ, Thebes openly revolted, calculating, not unreasonably, that Alexander was too stretched to respond. He responded in 11 days. The city that had produced the sacred band, the finest infantry unit in the Greek world, the same unit that Alexander's cavalry had shattered at Chaeronea, was razed. Ancient writers describe Alexander's rage. Here is the more accurate reading. This was the most deliberate act of statecraft in his entire career. He spared the house of the poet Pindar, a gesture ancient sources present as proof of Alexander's love of culture. It was also proof that he understood optics. Burning everything except the home of Greece's most celebrated poet is not sentimentality. It is branding. Recall what Philip had built in the previous years: the League of Corinth, the Pan-Hellenic Mandate that framed Macedonian dominance as Greek leadership. Alexander used Thebes to demonstrate what happened when that framework was rejected. By 334 before Christ, Alexander crossed into Asia with an army variously estimated between 35,000 and 48,000 troops. And this is the part most people get wrong. He was not a reckless young conqueror gambling on glory. He was executing a campaign plan Philip had already begun drafting. At the Granicus River and then at Issus, Alexander's forces met Persian armies and dismantled them using the same combined arms logic: phalanx pins, cavalry breaks, that had been rehearsed for years before he ever sat on a throne. These were not improvised victories. They were the proof of concept for everything Philip had engineered. Here is the editorial verdict, stepping outside the story one final time. The question was never whether a 14-year-old could control the greatest empire on earth. By the time Alexander died in Babylon in 323 before Christ at 32 years old, he had ruled for 13 years and stretched his empire further than any single conqueror before him. The machine Philip built never broke. The boy who inherited it simply never stopped driving. In 1495, the most powerful empire on earth was being run by a child. Not a figurehead, not a puppet. A 14-year-old boy, making decisions that determined the fate of millions, commanding armies, signing death warrants, navigating a court full of men twice his age who were all waiting for him to fail. His name was Huangju, and almost nobody knows his story. History remembers the great emperors who ruled for decades: the conquerors, the builders, the tyrants. But it rarely stops to ask, what happens to a child who inherits the weight of the world before he's old enough to understand it? What does that do to a person? What decisions do you make when every wrong move costs thousands of lives? When the advisors who are supposed to guide you are the same men who want to control you? When the throne that was meant to be your birthright feels more like a trap? This is not a story about power. It's a story about what power costs, and who pays the price when it lands on someone who never asked for it. Avum. Subscribe, because history isn't just made by the powerful. Sometimes it's made by those who had no choice but to become powerful before they were ever ready.